On the Breakfast Club. It's time right now for This Week in the Lakeville Journal. And we get together with the Lakeville Journal. We take a look at stories that they're following and have been following and that are coming up in the center studio, both Ann and Cynthia. Good morning. I don't hear them. Why don't I hear them? Because my cats, I think. There we go. My cats touched a button overnight that I didn't see.
Those cats.
Those darn cats. Well, good morning, both of you.
Good morning.
And we have someone that's not affected by those darn cats, Janet Manco. Good morning, Janet.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
All right. We've got we've got Compass and Farm to Table to talk about this morning on top of what's in the regular paper. And we'll start off with Susan Bysowitz, who was in our area updating towns on the budget and more.
I don't remember ever having Dan Malloy or Jody Rell or John Rowland come to a COG meeting. I think Dan Malloy was up here a few times, and Jody Rell was up here at least
Malloy
once.
was up here before he was elected the first time. Not very much other than that.
I think he was at a Lime Rock Park race once. But so we had Ned Lamont up here at a COG meeting about a month ago, and then we had Lieutenant Governor Susan Bysowitz here. And, you know, she did a nice job on updating the 21 first selectmen and mayors, et cetera, from our area towns. Talked a lot about taxes and about cutting back in the budget, and they seem to be quite serious about it and doing it in a way that doesn't seem to be pissing everybody off in quite the same dramatic way as the last government.
Well, you know, and we also, by the way, we should say we've never had a problem with our Congress people. They've always come to this area. Back to Nancy Johnson, they always came to this area.
Right.
So we have to credit also our Congresswoman who has been to the area twice already.
Right.
In her short term. So
and just appointed Emily Armstrong as a caseworker in the area, and she's reached out to us. We're very excited about that.
All right. Well, let's go on from one side of the page, and yes, we'll get to the Morris dancers in a moment, but we'll go to the other side, and that cars endanger air quality. Yeah, I don't think the Trump administration wouldn't agree with you about it.
Well, you know, people, so based on your conversation about meat and beef producing methane, I would just want to say that people tend to not look at the things that they like to do that are big pollution producers. So cars produce something like 38% of the bad air days that we have around here, but everybody seems to be fixating more on other things. So the State Council on Environmental Quality, which is an independent agency, is not connected to the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, produces an annual report on the environment and generally trending upward. Generally, we're getting better. Noting a lot of things that we have no control over, such as pollution that's drifting east into Connecticut from the Midwest, from older power plants there. And the report does stress it's the older power plants that are the problem. And what happens is when we're all using too much energy, such as on really hot days when we all have our air conditioners on, they are not getting enough power from the new, less polluting power plants, and they're going back to the older, more polluting power plants. So, you know, this is all relevant to stuff that's happening in this right in our little area. But, you know, one of the biggest polluters, of course, is our cars and our driving. But very interesting story, and I know a lot of people have been talking lately about the air quality days. You can download this report and you can see, you know, all the data you could ever dream of on our air quality, all presented in a very easy way to understand.
And I'll tie this into the fact when I used to live in Kingston, New York, when I used to come back from visiting my mother, and I would cross Kingston-Rhinecliff Bridge back in the 70s, you would look north over Hudson, and there would be a haze because there was a cement plant.
I remember the cement plant, right?
The cement plant stopped operating, and you can drive across that bridge now and look north, and you see no haze. Right. But there's a proposal to possibly bring another cement plant.
But keeping in mind, not that I'm an apologist for these factories, but the technology is much, much better now. So, like, I'm from the Midwest, and when you drive through the Midwest, what you used to see when you would drive through these big factory towns was disgusting. The air was disgusting. It's all much better now. So
hopefully it's the case. Yeah. But anyways, we don't know how good we got. Just look at some pictures of New York City in the 70s and then area pictures and look now.
Oh, look at regular pictures of either Hong Kong or Beijing on a smog day.
Yeah.
All right. Now, speaking about air, let's get to – that's the youngest Morris dancer that
I've
ever
seen. We all said that. The photocut line should be –
a babe in the woods.
Right? We all said the photocut line should be – they're young ones, too. So Morris dancing, really a wonderful old tradition around here, harkening back to Old England and troops from all over the area. They have their own specific adornments, the bells and the little rosettes and the colors of their. But you very rarely. Well, no, that's not true. Actually, you will often see one very young person who's getting ready to take on the tradition, and that's a wonderful thing. And so, of course, they all come right around the summer solstice. They meet up for one day of dancing in our area towns, and then they all convene together in Falls Village. I'm not sure why Falls Village is always the choice.
Because it's originally started. They used to be housed at Music Mountain, and that's where they used to stay but now, so it's just stuck. They always do that one big thing in Falls Village.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Thank you.
A little bit of history. I'll show you how old I am.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. That's useful to me.
All right. You've got a story on poet Susan Kinsolving.
Susan Kinsolving, who's one of the funniest, most fun people you'll ever meet, and married to the extremely also fun screenwriter William Kinsolving. They live in Lakeville, and Susan is the poet in residence at Hotchkiss and writes her own poetry. And I'm not a super knowledgeable person about poetry, but I think her work is wonderful. And the wonderful Divya Simmers, who had worked with her and likes her, did a really nice profile of her. And she will be reading from her new collection at the White Hart on June 20th as part of their ongoing author series.
All right, and as part of an informational session for people, now this isn't only for people in Sharon, but it's for anybody who is in the tri-state region with the Sharon Hospital. There's going to be an update from the state on the Sharon Hospital on the 27th, beginning at 4 o'clock. And basically it's just letting people know what's going on now and how people can keep abreast of what's going on.
Right, and also to note, 2 weeks ago we had our front page story was about the hospital's own community update, which they're required by their agreement to make. And so Patrick did a really good, thorough story on that. So that was the hospital presenting that. This is an event that's organized by Save Sharon Hospital, which is a group that was formed primarily by members of the Moore family when it looked like the obstetrics, gynecology, maternity ward was going to be shut down at the hospital. And they've invited the State Office of Health Strategy to come and just explain what's going on with the consolidation of HealthQuest with the Western Connecticut Medical Group and under the parent company of Nuvance.
And a story that Millerton Fresh Market is shut down. When I went to I forget when I rode into Millerton last weekend, late in the week, and I rode by and there was hardly any cars there, and I saw these yellow signs, on the doors, and I said to myself, "Oh, they're closed." And it's too bad because we need markets in this area because we lost the one market in Dover, and so now you have one in Amenia and you have one in Lakeville, and.
Well, there are a lot of, we're lucky, there's a lot of very good high quality grocery stores around here, but I really like the Cho family who started the Sharon Farm Market and Millerton Fresh Market, and I thought they did a good job, and it was a different model. Caitlin Lyle does a good job of explaining in this article. It was a different model at Sharon where there's different purveyors within the same building, like at Guido's, whereas at the Millerton Market they tried to take on everything themselves. And he built that wonderful lunch counter, and he was trying to build a breakfast and grill counter. And I think that maybe that the expenses on that got out of hand. But so they chose not to comment to us at this time. We don't know what's going to happen with the Sharon Market, but we'll wish them luck, and we'll hope that that really excellent grocery store stays open.
All right, on the inside of the paper, there it is, a picture of the truck that was stuck in the middle of the covered bridge.
A great photo by Tom Brown, who works at Cornwall Consolidated School, lives in Cornwall, and I'd say about every 3 years somebody gets stuck on that bridge, and there are signs that sort of warn them what the height is, but as one of the EMTs pointed out, the height of the bridge changes, so you can drive in, but once you've driven in, you often get stuck. So they had to deflate the tires and then drag the truck out. Yeah. And they said it was full of mattresses, which I thought was funny.
All right. And pictures of bears, and I'll tell you what, the bears are really out. Like I was talking to Cynthia before we got on the air. Never in my years of living up on the hill in Salisbury have I had 4 days in a row where there were bears in the morning, in the evening, at night, and in the middle of the day. I mean,
so
big
bold.
Bears, small bears, family bears. I mean, it was just a wild week.
Well, we were all three of us were just talking about John Harney, who posted on Instagram this morning 2 pretty large bears at his not super large house in Taconic, the Taconic section of Salisbury. Actually walked in the house, and he said, John's so jolly, and he's like, well, they're kind of big, but they made a mess, and they're out. But he said they came back this morning. And my understanding from last year was that once a bear is in the house, that the state will come out and destroy it. But it's like you said, there's so many bears now, it's hard to know which one is the bear that was in the house. So I would say lock your doors. Don't leave your garage open.
No, it's true. Lock the doors. You're not going to be able to leave your doors open. Your windows. Don't keep garbage where they can actually smell it and find it. I mean, if you keep garbage in your car and if you left a sandwich in your car and you've left your window down a little bit, guess what?
Yeah.
They'll break the window and they'll go in and get it.
But I want to say how proud I am of Ann Day, because I was at her house last night and she brought her bird feeder in. Good job, Ann Day.
All right.
I don't even think we should have a bird feeder. Could you please tell my husband that?
That's right.
Do you want me to talk to your husband?
Yes, please.
Only because
He'll listen to you.
way back when. No, sure he will.
Or you can hang it from a tree. That's what.
Well, no.
And they'll climb the tree.
That's the rest of my story.
Oh.
Yeah.
I had to bag the whole program, including suet.
Yeah. My mother used to love to feed the birds, but when in the summertime, nope. In the wintertime, she went back.
Well, they don't necessarily need it as much in summer as they need in winter.
The birds can find food. They don't need us to feed them.
Yeah. That's right. Hey, cricket's back in Lakeville.
Yes, it's coming up on June 22nd, and I'm very excited about it. And if you've never come out and watched the cricket, it's super fascinating. You should definitely do it. And if you get bored because the action is a little slower than we're accustomed to with American sports, but there is going to be a children's fete and funny little, there's like hot dogs and stuff that they usually sell. And it's one of those things you can like come in and out. There's no charge to watch. And there's always somebody there who will explain to you what's going on, because
they'll let you play after they teach you how. They'll let you play.
They'll let you play. But you have to dress right. And there's always one or two really good players that they import from like Long Island or something. So you do see some pretty high quality cricket, and it's just fun. And if you love like old English mystery TV shows like I do, it's like, oh, that's what they're doing.
All right, and we'll be interviewing about this tomorrow morning at 6:20 about the cricket, because I just think it's so cool.
It's great
how they put it at the community field.
Cricket is one of those sports that's so complex, and people become super passionate about it. So once you start to figure it looks really kind of simple and dumb, but it's very complicated. And once you start to figure it out, and if you can get somebody to explain the strategy to you, you're going to be hooked. And
we can cover all the graduations, because there's pictures of all the graduations throughout the Lakeville Journal today. Some in color, some not in color. Some it's to see the classes that go from 10 to 30 to 40. I mean,
right. And so last year we had the Cornwall Consolidated School graduating class was 2, and we were wondering what it would be this year, and I think it was 12. The Lee Kellogg School in Falls Village sometimes is as small as 4. That's usually the smallest school, but they have 10 this year. And then North Canaan had 26, I think. Kent had 26 or 27. So we had a pretty good sized student population this year, which is good to see.
And you'll see all the pictures, all the pictures throughout the paper.
And for trend watchers, always interesting to look at the outfits they wear. Some years kids get super dressed up and they have their hair done and they're wearing the fancy shoes. Some years they're I would say this is more of a casual year, and you always get a different vibe from the classes. Like some of them are super clingy to each other, don't want to leave the school. Some of them are just like they can't wait to get out. I would say all the classes this year sort of gave the vibe that they're ready for high school.
When you say that, I always remember back to Mr. Christina at Sharon Center School, my brother Mark and Louis Sevier and everybody else when they graduated 8th grade. You wore suit jacket if you didn't have one. They gave you a suit jacket, but they all decided to wear white socks, and they didn't tell Mr. Christina, and they just all showed up the night of the thing with white socks, and he was really upset because on stage it looked very strange.
Yeah.
many years ago.
Puffy white 1970s socks.
Hey, this is a story that I am amazed to see, but I saw the video from the meeting, and it's true that Sharon is going to try to take steps to ban plastic bags.
Yeah, so they're already doing this up in Massachusetts. Yep. Unusual in a town that's this small to sort of try and push a state law. But, got to love them for it. And I will tell you, the guys at the transfer station will be really happy, because what people always forget is the plastic bags don't go in the plastic recycling because it messes up the gears. And there's a statistic that I've heard, which is something like 80% of the garbage that we sent to China, which takes most of our recyclable stuff, is getting returned to us because it's contaminated. So that, like, for instance, if you don't rinse out your food containers or your liquid bottles, they'll send that back. It used to be that China was so happy to get it that they would just take it and they'd have individuals sitting there sorting through it. But you really need to, if we're going to make this recycling thing work, you really need to pay attention to the rules. And one of the rules is don't put your plastic bags in the single stream.
All right, now I'm going to go on to your story about Flag Day because I love the picture of the dog with the flag.
Cordelia Schiller, who was one of our summer interns a few years ago and came back, she's sort of taking a break from college, is just doing such a magnificent job for us. And she went to Flag Day June 14th at the VFW hall, and she's got great photos. And that's a VFW that's very vital. And while we have a lot of the VFWs are kind of losing their membership as they're aging out, there's really a very strong community at that one from all over the state.
All right, on the page with Cornwall, it's nice to see the way the kids got together, the students, and honored 30 years for the Cornwall Nurse by all dressing up.
Right, I know. It's like when Bill Beebe retired from Lee Kellogg last year, and they all dressed up as Mr. Beebe. So kudos to all the kids for having a sense of fun. And also the amazing Bunny Williams, who just is everywhere this year and is so benevolent and is so generous with her energy.
And you've got a story, Lime Rock Park.
Jack Scott, who I remember from elementary school at the Lee Kellogg School, and then remember him driving his dirt bike around in Falls Village Flower Farm, has gone into business and has a company called Housatonic Racing Development. And I was interested, you often, there are people who hate Lime Rock Park, and then there are people who dream of going there. And so he's got Mazda Miatas that are perfectly tuned up, and you just go and you organize with him, and he gets you on the track on either a race day or a testing day. So that's kind of fun.
And you've got the story there. I'm going to moderate a session with Skip Barber at the Interlaken on Wednesday, July 10th from 11 to 1.
And we hope everybody shows up and that they actually listen with an open mind, because there's information being shared, and we find that people don't always listen to what's being said. What we want
people to do with this, and I'm going to moderate it, is we're not going to ask you to write questions. You can come. We don't want people to speak your agenda. Ask your questions that you need answers to. Right. And Skip is going to be there, and he's going to answer them. So you can ask whatever question about Lime Rock, the court case that he can answer, or anything like that, the future of Lime Rock. Ask those questions and get the answers directly from Skip that day.
Who is, contrary to what is sometimes said, an extremely nice person and a gentleman.
And we're going to keep this on a very, very nice basis, and it's just,
And civil.
And civil. Just ask your questions. And
Marshall, will you repeat the date again?
It's going to be
everybody.
It's going to come up on. We had to go through a million different dates because it's going to be July 10th, which is a Wednesday.
My birthday.
Now people are saying, well, it should have been in the evening, but it's not in the evening. It's 11 to 1. And the Interlaken, even to provide incentive, is going to provide food, hors d'oeuvres, and everything like that for free. But just come and ask. Everybody's going to be able to ask one question, and if there's enough time, a second question. So we're going to, you're going to be able to ask these questions.
It's an informational forum,
That's
and
exactly
it needs
right.
to be utilized as such. And I'm going to say anyone who doesn't is going to have to deal with me, and Marshall will tell you that's bad.
And the cats.
All right. So now we're going to go to the health page, and then we're going to go very quickly to Janet.
Okay, so very quickly, because we're running out of time,
Yes.
Two summer topics like spoilage and food. I learned a lot that I was doing wrong, so definitely read that. And then Matt Gordon wrote a very interesting thing on ticks and said something that Bill Littauer from the Lakeville Lake Association also said, which is there's this new thing where they're taking cotton balls and soaking them in permethrin, because apparently it's the mice that are carrying the ticks, and so this kills the ticks in the mouse nest. So read the article for more.
All right, now we only have 2 minutes left, so Janet, why don't we talk about your editorial?
Well, quickly, the editorial is congratulating our graduates, so do read that one. And we have letters from people on Lime Rock Park. We have a letter from Jackson Carroll in the 8th grade at Salisbury Central, dirt bikes. And we have Appreciating the Power of the Sun, and Catherine Palmer Payton writing about Kaylin, who died 10 years ago. So don't miss that letter, and don't miss Deborah Moore's guest commentary on Sharon Hospital's future. It has a lot of information in it, really interesting, and a good lead-in for the meeting. You can attend. She also has excerpts from the Certificate of Need for the hospital, so you can think deeply about it.
All right, and before we get to Compass very quickly, a very nice Discover Farm to Table 2019 segment.
Thank you. One of our most popular supplements, and tons of beautiful photos by Ann Day and Alexander Wilburn, but also information that's useful and tasty and delicious. So do read it.
And you have 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Okay, so we have a very, very exciting and Salacious Compass this week. We have nudes on the cover. I want everyone to buy Lakeville Journal to get their cheap thrills. And we have a lot going on right now. I just want to point out a few highlights. One is that the Sharon Playhouse is opening on Friday night with Crazy for You. That's tomorrow night. We have a preview of it in the paper this week. There's a great musical at the Warner Theater. We have a review of it. It's called Disaster. It's a 70s disaster movie musical. There's a review of all the 6 galleries in Kent. 2 new galleries have opened. And that's by Emily Gates. It's terrific, as always. The thing I was most kind of thrilled by is this piece by Fred Baumgarten about the Boston Early Music Festival, where they reimagine what it would be like to be in the court at Versailles for Louis XIV. And he's in a wheelchair, and they all sing to him as if it were really in 1682. And read that piece. And the Boston Early Music Festival is happening on Friday and Saturday at the Mahayway in Great Barrington. We also have another piece by Fred Baumgarten. Thank you, Fred, if you're listening. It's his review of season 2 of HBO series Big Little Lies, and I have to say I loved Big Little Lies, the first season, with Reese Witherspoon, who was never my favorite. Now I worship her. Nicole Kidman, Laura Dern. Now we've got Meryl Streep, and it is creepy. This new season is just creepy. I don't even know if I like it. Fred likes it, so read the review. It's just almost, sometimes when you have a great thing, they try to keep making it greater, and it doesn't work because they overdo it. We also have a talk at the Tort Museum, one of my favorite places to write about. It's the Tort Museum in Winstead, and there's a talk about that Ethiopian airline flight which crashed on March 10th. And this crash included Ralph Nader's grandniece. So they'll be talking about the lives of the people who were lost in the crash, but also about air safety in general. And is that all the time I have, Marshall?
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you so
and
much.
beyond.
We just touched some of the stuff in the Lakeville Journal. Of course, you can buy it on newsstands, trycornernews.com, and on Facebook, and we'll speak to you guys next week.
And don't forget to subscribe.
That's right. There you go. All right, trycornernews.com. And as we said, you'll find them on Facebook as well.